Does today's media portrayal of men and women have an impact on how students act and are treated at school? We talked to some King High students to see how they feel about this subject. Here's what they had to say. Does the portrayal of men and women have a big impact on how students act and are treated at school?
I say yes and no. Yes, because people always try to follow trends and they'll dress differently to fit in. But then, like me, for example, I wear what's comfortable and what I think is cool. I don't go by what other people think.
The media expects certain genders to behave a certain way, and the people at the school try to follow those expectations.
Male and female students both have a certain set of expectations that they have to achieve. Men are supposed to be masculine and tough, and women are supposed to be submissive, and they're supposed to care what the other sex thinks. And even people in between that don't subscribe to the gender binary at all, they're expected to fall in between one or the other. So it's just all around a mess, yeah.
Like a lot of students, I guess, probably base a lot of how they act off of, what they watch in the media, what they see on the news, what they, like comedy sketches portraying racial stereotypes. Not that it's a bad thing, but for the most part, I think students are, generally level-headed and they're smart kids. They don't base everything in their lives off of, what happens on the media. They probably tell the difference between, what happens in real life with real people as opposed to what happens on SNL, So that's...
Have you ever personally felt pressured to look or act a certain way?
Not necessarily, no, but I know other people at the school have, because there's, like I said, expectations from the media that, pretty much convince people that they have to behave a certain way or act a certain way, and if they don't, then they're going to be judged for it.
No, I just dress how I want to dress.
Not to the extent where people were spitting at me or yelling and stuff like that. But yeah, there's definitely been some either just awkward feeling where if you act out of your gender norm, people kind of either stare at you or just kind of being it's kind of weird, or sometimes there was straight out hostility if, something weird would happen. Sometimes I dance and spin around. That seems kind of weird coming from me, but it's something that was, when I was a kid. No, but yeah, so there's been some pressure sometimes, but for the most part I try to ignore that.
Have you ever felt personally pressured to look or act a certain way?
Not me necessarily. I mean, in certain ways, yes and no, we're always going to be affected by it, but I've seen it more prevalent in other people.
I would say it does, but I don't really see it that often.
Definitely yes, because with the school dress code, I think it's kind of dumb because they have all these dress code rules for girls where they have to not show enough cleavage, or if they're showing too much leg they get in trouble, and they have to meet all these certain standards. But with boys it's acceptable for them to sag their pants or wear really revealing tops, I guess. And I just think it's a double standard.
The female sports teams are called the Lady Wolves instead of just the Wolves like the male teams. Do you think that plays a role in sexism?
Not really. I mean, because there has to be a distinction. Well, not that there has to be, but they want a distinction between those two teams. Between the boys' team and the girls' team. And wolves are already kind of seen as a masculine type creature. There's wolves, there's a pack of them. You don't really think of them as girl wolves. I don't think the name Lady Wolves is sexist in a lot of respects, but that's just...
I would say to some extent it does. I don't think it diminishes their accomplishments at all. I think it's just a way to distinguish between the male teams and the girl teams. I mean, you could say the guy wolves or the male wolves, but I don't think it would make it any less.
It's not as obvious as, say, dress code or just plain favoritism between males and females, but it does imply a difference, and I think that alone is enough to set it as sexist.
It doesn't have much of an impact as other things do. I don't think people take that as serious as things such as the dress code.
Do you think the dress code enforces sexism?
I think in some ways it does. Guys for rallies, if they were short shorts or something, it'll be funny. and it'll be like just good for the show. But if a girl does it, it'll be like it might be inappropriate or
We're
something.
too busy telling girls what to wear, and we're not tackling the real issue, which is the non-sexualization of body parts. Because shoulders shouldn't be distracting, but we're not tackling the real
Dress
issue.
code in general isn't really enforced that much. Like, like spaghetti straps are against the rules, like for the dress code, but I see girls wearing spaghetti straps all the time. It doesn't really bother me, but it's technically against, the dress code. So a lot of the stuff that's in the dress code isn't enforced, so that way, I don't know, it doesn't really affect anyone, whether it be, for sexist reasons or not. But the rules themselves might be a little biased against what girls wear more than guys, because guys can, I don't know, like I see guys like walking around shirtless sometimes, like in the summer, and that's something that probably should be in the rules. I don't know if it is or not, but again, most of the dress code isn't enforced anyway, so I don't think it affects sex or enforces sexism much, in my opinion.
Do you think that the school would be different if we had a woman as a principal?
I don't think so, because I've been in a school where we did have a female as a principal, and it wasn't much different because the sexism just carries over in the policies, and it's not really up to them to change certain things. So they only have a certain level of control.
I honestly don't think it makes a difference, because they're still going to expect the students to behave a certain way, and I don't think it should make a difference at all, because male or female, they're still going to just want you to follow the rules and get the education that you come.
Mr. Hansen is kind of like, he's like a guy. Like, oh man, that sounded. No, but he used to like play baseball, and he's like this kind of big man. He's obviously like a man. So I don't know if like being a man affected his policies or anything. But from what I know, his policies are pretty gender neutral. It's not like he, put out like a lot of support for like say just sports and completely ignored dance and cheer and stuff like that. I know personally he's supported the mock trial team, and mock trial isn't like a masculine thing or anything. So no, Mr. Hansen's been pretty gender neutral. If anything, if we had a girl principal, like I don't know, there might be even sexism in the opposite direction, where she would try to get girls more involved, and that wouldn't be a bad thing at all. But it might be a difference to consider. But from what I see for Mr. Hansen right now, he's pretty gender neutral. He's pretty even across all boards.
I would say no, because in my elementary school I had a woman principal and it didn't make any difference. It was school. I don't think it changes anything.